yeah. Making a difference, one cup at a time. Yeah, this is tea time. Yeah. Making a difference, one cup at a time. So be sure to grab your tea, grab a seat, and tune in to Miss Liz. Tea time, making a difference, one cup at a time. Tea time, yeah. Tea time, time.
Well, good morning and welcome to Tea Time. That's right, Miss Liz is back and we have a full new week. We have an incredible guest in the back, and this morning we're going to be talking about addictions recovery. So I do want to put out a trigger warning for anyone who may be triggered. I will not be offended if you cannot tune into my show this morning. I do not want to trigger anybody, so be aware Miss Liz is here for no triggers. So again, I am joined by Jack Allen Levine, and we're going to talk some really good, strong stuff this morning. We're going to serve a really good, strong TEA, and we're going to make a difference together by having an open discussion and conversation. We're just going to do simple TEA. Now, you might be looking, Miss Liz has turned the camera this morning, and there's some good news. May 17th, be sure to check out. Miss Liz is going to be launching her 3 books. So they are on the shelf. I did open the box yesterday, and oh my God, they are gorgeous. So if anybody would like to pre-order them, they can go to the website at www.misslizsteatimes.com. But we're not here about my books. We're here for Jack. So we're going to do the disclaimer, and we're going to do his bio and all that good stuff. And we're going to have a good, strong cup of tea this morning. So the disclaimer for Miss Liz's live show. Miss Liz, myself, is going live using StreamYard. Before leaving a comment, please grant StreamYard permission to see your name at StreamYard.com. Please be advised that the content brought forward for any Tea Time show hosted by myself, Miss Liz, is always brought forward in good faith. However, it may bring forward dialogues and opinions that are not representative of my platform. The facts and information are perceived to be accurate at the given time of airing. All Tea Time guests and audience participants are responsible for using their good judgment in taking any action that may relate to the discussion. The content brought forward may include discussions for some where they may be emotionally at risk. It is significant to know that this show is engaging in discussion forums only to offer and inspire awareness and connection, and is not providing therapeutical advice. If you have any questions about the disclaimer or the panelist discussion, you may freely contact me, Miss Liz, through my email at bookingmissliz@gmail.com. Moving forward, should you choose to voluntarily participate in this show in any aspect, I myself, Miss Liz, welcomes you. And should you decide that the show is not made for you at this time, I respect that choice, and I will see you at a later show and a later dated time. And again, all Tea Times this year in 2023 are done on Thursday unless they are a rescheduled show, and then they are done on a Monday or Tuesday. So again, if you want to see what's coming, go to the website, because now they're all listed. You can RSVP all of these guests that are coming today. So Jack Allen Levine is an addiction expert, author, has spoken to thousands of people over the last 20 years on dealing with and successfully overcoming addictions. His book on addictions, My Addict, Your Addict, an Addictions and Recovery Handbook, talks about his battles and victory over addictions, and shows those struggling with addictions how to understand and overcome addiction. Jack created and developed the Free for Life Overcoming Addiction online video program, which helps addicts and their families deal with the reality of addictions and outlines the clear paths and solutions available to overcoming addictions. Now, to get Jack's full bio, please go to Miss Liz's Facebook page and you can get all that stuff. Now, let's get Jack in here so I can sip on some tea and we can serve you a good strong tea. So, let me get Jack.
Hi,
Welcome, Jack.
hi, Miss Liz. Good morning. It's a pleasure to be here. Thanks so much for having me on the show.
It is an honor to have you here. So, I'm just going to sip on some tea and I'm going to let you share a little bit on who Jack is and how it all started and how you got to where you are today. So, the little Jack to the big Jack. Let's get started with that.
All right. Well, little Jack grew up in Yonkers, New York. I had wonderful parents. We were very middle class. My father and mother worked very hard so that my older brother and I could have a better life. So we really wanted for nothing. When I graduated high school a year early, I really just wanted to experience the world. I never really liked going to school, although I excelled at the things I enjoyed. The classes I didn't enjoy, like math and science, I didn't do very well at. So I graduated a year early at the suggestion of a teacher and got out and went to Syracuse University as a journalism major and an advertising major. To add to the story, I started smoking pot at about 16 years old. The great news to that, not that I started smoking pot, but the great news is that I actually had a childhood. I grew up going to Yankee games and bowling and having friends. So my mind was somewhat developed. It is a tragedy today to see these kids at 9, 10, 11, and 12 years old who are struggling with drugs and addiction, who haven't even had a childhood. I can't even fathom that in my head. So I went off. So in college, I continued to smoke pot. I was a dual major in advertising and sociology. My parents paid for my education, which was wonderful, so I didn't have to work. What a blessing. But I also started to do other drugs. I started to get into Quaaludes and barbiturates and eventually cocaine, which was the end of me, and Percocet, and destroyed me. And I'm not proud to say that we also engaged in some buying and selling of drugs during college. Again, at that time, you know, we thought it was good. Really, the tragic part of the drugs is that they're great in the beginning. You know, they really are. Like, I remember sitting down first doing cocaine and thinking if all the world leaders sat around a table and snorted lines of cocaine, we would have world peace because there'd just be such clarity and understanding. Well, the great lie of drugs and of cocaine and any other drug, of course, they may be good in the beginning, but that changes very quickly. They're almost like the kidnapper who opens up the truck and says, here's the candy, come on in now, I've got you. And I can't tell you, for some people, it takes 6 months or 2 years, but somewhere a year or two down the line, you know that the drugs have you, that you don't have them anymore. There's no more fun. There's no more joy. You're doing them, but it's not like it was. You become paranoid and upset and frustrated. But amazingly enough, I continued on. I graduated college with a dual degree. I was very high functioning. I went to work on Madison Avenue, which was my dream. Well, my dream was actually playing baseball for the Yankees, but that didn't come true growing up in New York, only getting like 3 months a year. So to me, advertising was the next best thing. There was teammates and competition, and no 2 days were the same. I'm not a routine guy. I like spontaneity and difference. And it was just extremely exciting. I went to work for NW a large ad agency on Madison Avenue. Our clients were AT&T, reach out and touch someone, the Army, be all you can be. And it was exciting and it was great. And I loved it. And I was thriving in that atmosphere. But on the side, my drug use and addiction was continuing. And it was getting the best of me. And I remember in 1985, I said to my father, I have to move away. I was thinking that if I could just get away from my environment in New York, I could get away from the drugs and the addiction. Well, of course, you can't run from yourself, but I did move down to Florida, hoping for a new start. And I remember my father saying to me, he was an old school guy, great guy, but he didn't really understand the whole drug addiction thing. But he said, all right, listen, you know, do what you got to do. He said, but whatever you do, don't tell your mother, you know, that you have a blood problem. He didn't want her to worry. You know, she was beautiful. He loved her so much.
The good don't tell mom, right?
Right. Don't tell mom. So I did move down to Florida. Unfortunately, that was not the answer. As my addiction followed me and it kept getting worse and worse. I had a very successful business in Florida. Had a TV production company that we started with my partner and I on a borrowed $100,000 and a couple of middle management guys, and we built it from 5 employees to 200 employees, doing $15 million a year in revenue. And it was great, but my drug addiction was getting worse and worse. I used to just do drugs when I came home after work. at 5 o'clock, at 6 o'clock, I take Percocet, but it got worse and worse. Then I was doing them at 2 o'clock, then at 12 o'clock, then at 10. Then when I woke up and I knew I was addicted. And I say to people, listen, if I knew how easy detox was, I would have stopped 2 years ago. Part of my fear in continuing on my addiction, even though I had wanted to stop, was I was scared of the detox, of coming down, of withdrawal. I had never experienced it before. And it just, so for 2 more years, I kept going. And when I eventually did go into detox in rehab, it was easy. Detox was great. They give you drugs that are different, but you come down off those in a few days, and then you're not addicted. So the amazing part, and I'll tell you a little bit more about me, but the amazing part about addiction is that any person struggling with drug addiction can be detoxed in 5 to 10 days, drug or alcohol. So the bottom line is that physically, you would no longer be dependent on drugs after detox. However, we know that that's not the answer, because it's not just the body that we're treating the spirit, mind, and soul and body. We have to treat the whole person, not just the physical part, or it would be easy. People go to detox and they would stop. So for me, again, the business was highly successful. What got me to the point of finally going to rehab was 2 things. One, I had a car accident and put my car through a fence in a blackout and wound up probably 50 feet from a lake that I would have drowned in. I didn't even know I had been in an accident. I walked out of the car all night in a park, walking around, and morning came. I found a construction trailer, and they let me use a phone, and I thought my car had been stolen. I thought I had ran out of gas. I didn't realize I crashed through a fence. The car was wrecked. I was destroyed. So that kind of got me the help I need. And to add to the story, I was married for a year to a very sweet girl, and we were going to have a baby to save the marriage. Marriage was having troubles because of my drug use. She wasn't a drug user, I was. And I relapsed. I did cocaine again. And by the way, the cocaine, when you do it in the beginning, like I said, you have world clarity, but at the end, it makes you paranoid and you disappear. Now, back then, Liz, we didn't have cell phones. I couldn't text anybody, hey, I'm okay. If I tell you the worry that I did occasionally to my parents, to my friends, by disappearing for 3 days, not because I wanted to, but after I did the drug, you couldn't talk and communicate. You were living in your mind. So I'll never forget the day I had done cocaine, and she found out, and she looked at me and she threw something at me, and she said, "You're a loser and you'll always be a loser." And she left, and we got divorced. It was a very amicable divorce. We had no children. I had $50,000 in the bank. I said, take all the money. Just leave me my interest in my private TV production company. This is, not the one we had started. This is the one prior. She said, no problem. Your partner's an idiot. Just take the money. So there I am. I'm 36 years old. I am in the height of my drug addiction. It turns out about a month later, my partner, I own 20% of the company. He owned 80% of his first company, was stealing from me. Don't ask me why you'd steal when you own 80% of the company. And he himself was on drugs. And I had to leave the company. And I was there and, distraught and jealous of my friends who had worked from high school. Not that they were rich, but they'd been working for 16 years. They had careers and lives. They didn't think, what am I going to do next? And we started the second TV production company, the one I told you about that we built up. And after I put the car through the blackout, the week prior to that, I was in Lake Tahoe on vacation, and I prayed to God. And I said, God, you have to help me with this addiction. I can't stop by myself. I knew I was way over the line. And I put the car through the fence in a blackout, and that's when I realized I needed help. I went into rehab, and it was fantastic. In rehab, I learned why I did drugs. I had never known before. Now, I had put people through rehab in our TV production company because I had a drug addict myself. I could tell when people needed drugs. One guy came back in. This is before I went to rehab, and I'll never forget. He came to my office, a guy named Eddie, and he said, hey, I want to thank you guys for sending me into rehab. It changed my life. It turned me around. It was amazing. And he said, I learned why I did drugs, and thank you so much. And I remember he walked out the door, and I thought, oh my gosh, I don't know why I do them. I know why I say I do them. I know I think I do them. Oh, they bring me comfort. They make me feel good. I work hard. I deserve it. But I knew, and every single person who is struggling and battling with drug or alcohol addiction, and alcohol is a drug. It's the same thing. It's just a different category. It's not different. Knows that they are addicted. They may never admit it. Their friends and family know. This is when I counsel addicts, I lovingly say, everybody knows. Now, like in my life, I wouldn't let them tell me. And so they didn't. But they all knew, my wife at the time, my friends, they all know. They can see the change and the difference. And the amazing thing I learned in rehab is that addicts have characteristics that are unique to all addicts. Like if you get the flu, you're going to have symptoms of the flu. No matter who you are, your symptoms are going to be the same. So when I sat with the drug counselor in rehab, and he started in 5 minutes to tell me things that I thought were my deepest, darkest secrets. And I'm looking at him, I'm going, how could you possibly know these things? This is impossible. And he looked at me lovingly and he laughed and he said, Jack, all addicts are the same. He said, we all have the same traits in addiction. And, so then I learned why I did drugs, and I want to talk about that. And then since then, I have been freed from addiction. I believe God, saved me and gave me the answer. And I do want to share that the desire to do drugs has never left me. I have friends who, like a light switch, like a miracle, it was gone. Hey, I had desire, and all of a sudden I never desired to use drugs again. Not me. If there were no downside, I would use drugs today. But there's a tremendous downside, and I'm not willing to go there again. So if we have a minute, let's talk about why I did drugs and why people do drugs. So we used to laugh in college. We used to say, reality is for people who can't handle drugs. We were smart butts, we thought we were what I learned.
Right? That's how you kid, you were like, you're not a cool kid because you don't do that stuff, right?
Right. You don't do that stuff. So what I learned is that usually as little children, as children, we build up defense mechanisms that our mind is working to help us prevent pain. This is a good thing. Who wants to feel pain? And when we think of a little kid in diapers, a little baby, we think that's a good idea. But we wouldn't think that's a good idea that you're wearing diapers at 20, 30, 40, 50 years old. Riding a 3-wheel tricycle as a little tyke is a great idea, so you don't fall and hurt yourself. But we wouldn't think at 20, 30, 40, you'd need a 3-wheeler anymore. You would take that off at some point. But what happens to us in our emotional and psychological lives is that we build up some defense mechanisms and we don't take them off. We never stop. So we're always looking to avoid pain. Our mind is doing what it's supposed to do. It's protecting us. And we see drugs as a way to avoid pain, to help us escape reality. Hey, look at all this pressure everybody's putting on me. My wife, my boss, the world. I do this, I got to do that. And the drugs lie. The great lie of the drugs and alcohol is, I'm your friend. I'm the only one who understands you. Look what everybody's doing. Look at the pressure. Look what they expect of you. Look at this and that. And it's just a lie. So the amazing part, and I share this, and I hope our audience take this to heart, is the drugs are not your problem. The alcohol is not your problem. You're going to no, Jack, this problem. No, the drugs and alcohol are the symptom. The problem is, why are you doing it? And sometimes stopping to use drugs and alcohol is the equivalent of shutting off a smoke alarm when there's a burning fire. Hey, we need to get to the root cause of what it is. In ninth grade, before I ever picked up a drug, I was 15 years old. I was absent 91 out of 180 school days. Both my parents worked. They were very loving parents. I would tell them I was sick. I had toothache, stomachache, headache. Typical Jewish parents. Oh, poor Jackie. I'll stay home. Well, they worked. As soon as they left that door, I was playing basketball in my room. I was watching soap operas. I was having the greatest time. I didn't want to go to school. I was isolating myself before I ever picked up a drug. So drugs are just another way to isolate ourselves. Here's the amazing part. When I did drugs or gambled, which was another addiction, I had the joy of having two, it was the one place where you couldn't touch me. You couldn't get me. I was in control, or thought I was in control. And so you would ask, why would somebody continue to do this destructive behavior that is clearly destroying their life? Let's say in the first year or two, they didn't know. But somewhere along the line, it becomes very clear, hey, I'm losing my friends, my girlfriend, my family, my job, my health, everything. I'm stealing a lot. And the answer is there's comfort in familiar pain. That's the therapeutic answer. There's comfort in familiar pain. Yeah, I know it's bad for me, but it's where I go where you can't touch me. So when I looked at my own life and isolating and the things I had, I would equate it to walking into a room and you have all these weapons, big guns and grenades and everything, and the enemy's in the room. And you go in and it's dark and you just start shooting off all these weapons you have and everything. And all of a sudden you're out of weapons, you turn on the light, and there in the corner is a tiny little guy with a bow and arrow, and he shoots you right between the eyes and you're dead. All you had to do was go into the room and turn the light on and you would have seen where he was. But no, you just do everything, without turning the light. So in addiction, we want to get to the root cause. The behavior of the addict, you're going to lie, cheat, and steal. And I say to parents, that sweet son or daughter of yours is still in there. He's just been overtaken. In my book, Addiction and Recovery Handbook, which your audience can have a free copy of, free ebook copy of. There's a chapter by Dr. Adam Bianchini where he talks about how the brain gets rewired by addiction. Literally, chemically rewired, so that all that's happening is your addiction is in control of your life. All you're thinking about is the next drug, the next bet, the next, how am I going to get it? And it'll wait 3 months, it'll wait 6 months, it'll wait. But addiction's a progressive disease. You can stop for 2 years, pick up again. You're worse than you were the first time. So, all that long said. So for me, the great news is, I was high functioning. I went and I got the help I needed. Unfortunately, it cost me my first marriage, but God was very good to me. 6 months after I got divorced, God woke me up, and regardless of what your individual belief in God is, I always knew there was a God. At 33 years old, I encountered Jesus Christ and been walking with him since the last 30 years. So when I say God woke me up and God spoke to me, I'm not talking about audibly. I don't hear God audibly, but in my spirit, I sense God speaking to me. And God said to me, the divorce was your fault. I said, what do you mean it was my fault? And God said, what part of you should love your wife as I love the church was unclear to you? What part of the two of you should be one flesh was unclear? I always loved my first wife. She was very sweet, but I always thought I was me and she was her. And I never looked at the two of us as one. So I said to God, look, I'm sorry. I see now it was my fault. I'm sorry for that. I said, I would like to have a wife and a family, but if you want me not to, I will stay single the rest of my life, whatever you want. And I waited 6 years. And Miss Liz, I mean, waited in every sense of the word, waited. And God brought me Beth. We've been married 23 years. We have 3 children. And, God was faithful. God was faithful. So, and I think I had said to you prior, but I want your audience to hear, I asked God why I had to waste, 10 years of my life doing drugs. And it was a waste, even though I was high functioning. It was a waste. I know it was a waste. Yeah, I moved forward, but I shudder to think what I could have accomplished if I had that. And God, again, gave me comfort through his word. In 2 Corinthians 1, he says, the comfort you've received from God is the comfort you're to give others. So I would have never written these books. I would have never spoke. I would never be helping people overcome addiction and their families and how to deal with it had I not experienced it. Now, it wasn't God's choice that I become a drug addict. I did that myself. I made bad choices. But when I turned from them and repented, and did the right thing, God blessed it. And I'm very grateful for that. I went on to a very successful TV production companies. In 2002, I sold that TV production company to go into more ministry stuff, but God kept giving me business opportunities. So I've been able to do kind of real estate and solar investing in business and a lot of consulting and write. I've written a ton of books, but my passion is speaking to people. My 3 favorite topics in order are God, addiction, and business. Those are 3 things I seem to know the most about, and I'm happy to share what I know, about those. A lot of them are intertwined sometimes. But I tell you this, Ms. Liz, that the pain and suffering that an addict goes through, not just himself, but what he causes his family or her family, and it's tragic. And my challenge to people is to come see the truth for yourself. Come learn about addiction, understand it, know it. And if your choice is to still do drugs, then do drugs. Nobody's asking you to sign a contract. Nobody's asking you to make a commitment. As a matter of fact, I say to addicts when they're struggling, I say, listen, don't make any commitments to anybody because your word means nothing. Nobody believes you. Nobody believes you. So your words are meaningless. And then I said, but I will tell you this. I said, I don't know how long it's going to take. I don't know if it's going to be 6 months or 2 years, but somewhere down the line, if you do the right thing, people will see the change in you and your life will change. I know you have some questions for me. I just want to tell you one last quick story. We were in Lake Tahoe and we were sitting at a table. This was after I had recovered from drug addiction. And we were with 5 couples, there were 10 of us. And somehow story got to college, and I was telling a story about my college days and drug dealing and how I had $28,000 in a safe deposit box from dealing drugs, how proud of what a smart businessman I thought I was. And my friend Yvette looked across the table and she said to me, oh my goodness, why Jack Levine, I would have never imagined that you could do such a thing. Well, that night after dinner, I went up to the hotel room and I cried. I was crying my eyes out. I said, God, thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. That when people look at me today, they couldn't even imagine that would have been who I was. And that's it. So I don't want to keep going on. I want to.
No. And this is what we need, right? Is we need your story. We need you to tell it, because I can't tell your story and I can't serve your tea. All of my guests come on Tea Time for a reason. They come to serve me a good, strong TEA. So I want to get into that question right away, Jack. We're going to get into your tea, and then we're going to get into some questions that are coming in and that. And we're going to learn a little bit more about addictions. So if anybody has any questions or comments or anything, leave them in the section of the stream or send them directly to Miss Liz DM box. You guys all know how Miss Liz works. You can send it privately, so I respect your wishes as well. So again, Jack, I want to know what your tea is. So if I ask you, what is your tea this morning? What 3 words are you giving me?
I would say, Miss Liz, without a doubt, first of all, hope. That every person out there would know that there's hope and that there is a way out, and not to give up no matter how desperate it seems, no matter how hopeless it seems. They say that you've lost hope when you can't see how tomorrow would be better than today. And I get that you can get to that point in your life, but God sees, and God has a plan for your life. And God says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to prosper you, to give you a hope in the future, not to harm you. That's a promise from God, regardless of whether you had great parents or not great parents. God created you. There's a plan for your life. Look at me, look at millions of others who have been transformed. And that's my next word, is transformation. For some, it's a spiritual transformation. For me, it was. For others, it's a different type of transformation. It's an educational transformation. It's a life transformation. I don't care what inspires you to get better. I just care that you get better. I'm not saying, hey, you have to have an experience encounter with Jesus Christ. I think that would be wonderful for your eternal well-being and your life now. And that's clearly what happened to me. But I'm telling you that there's a way out of addiction. There's 7 ways out of addiction. And you need to choose one. And the example I want to give you is, look, if you told me, Jack, I want to go to New York. And I said, hey, there's a plane leaving in an hour. And you said, oh, no, I won't fly. And I said, well, you can take Amtrak. That'll take you 24 hours. You said, oh, no, I won't get on the train. Well, how about Greyhound? There's a bus. No, I won't get on the bus. Well, will you ride in a car? No. Will you go on horseback? No. Will you hitchhike? Will you walk? No. So basically what you're saying is you don't want to go to New York because there's 7
right.
Right. And some of them are a lot more efficient and effective and quicker than others. But the bottom line is every single one of them will get you there. So all I ask people who are struggling is one question. Do you want help? That's the only question. Not what this. I mean, I'll sit and listen to your story for 2 hours, and I'll believe that yours is really the worst. And I know how personal and the struggles, and nobody understands, and it's not fair. And I'm not poo-pooing it. We've all been there. I get it. But at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is, do you want help? What would the difference be if you broke your leg playing soccer? If a mafia guy hit you with a baseball bat and broke it? You tripped over a hole and broke it, or you broke it in a car accident. Can you imagine someone saying, I'm not going to go get help for my leg because I broke it tripping in a hole. If only I broke it in a car accident, then I'd get help.
Then I go get help, right?
It's absurd.
It's not to the extreme yet. It hasn't gotten to the worst part. So.
Or it's because my parents, or because my wife doesn't stand, or because the job. Because what's the difference how you got where you got? The only difference is, do you want to get, what are we going to do about it now? If I'm traveling and I get directions, if I'm going to California and I get lost, I don't turn around and go home. I get directions to go forward. So the third word would be hope, transformation. And the third word for my team, Ms. Liz, would be inspiration. Inspiration. I want to inspire you that there's hope and transformation. There's a better life, and that this side of the journey is so much better. I mean, I'm telling you from experience, and I shared with you, I still have the desire to do drugs. So how do I deal with that? Well, it's not an everyday desire, but I don't know, once or twice a year it comes, hey, Jack, you're working hard. And Jack, didn't God say he'd forgive all your sins? So you could sin and God has to forgive you, right? And you would never go back to where you were again, right, Jack? I mean, you'll just do one line or one pill and you'd never get back into that problem again. And then we have what I call a board of directors meeting. And at the board of directors meeting is me, God, and Satan, the enemy, the evil one.
Yep.
And Satan is saying, Jack, you should do drugs again. Of course, God has to forgive you and you deserve it and you'll never go that way and it's okay. And then God says, Jack, you know better than that. And then we vote. And 100% of the time, the vote is always 2-0 against doing drugs, because Satan may have a voice in my life, but he doesn't have a vote anymore. Only me and God get to vote. So that's the bottom.
I like that.
The bottom line for me. And Miss Liz, there's so many people out there who are struggling with addiction. I understand what you're going through, but the greatest challenge I ever got was when somebody said to me, Jack. And we were talking about rehab and times I didn't want to go before I went. And he said, I have a lot of respect for you. If you climb to the top of the mountain, look down and tell me you don't like what you see. I have no respect for you if you won't go look. So I say to people, listen, what have you got to lose? And why rehab? Why am I so adamant on rehab? Listen, let's talk about the ways to overcome addiction. One is spiritual, is prayer. God, please take this from me. I have friends that have got down on their knees or prayed, not on their knees, and prayed for deliverance. That's what the spiritual term is, from an addiction, and God has delivered them. But he doesn't deliver everybody like that. I've seen supernatural healing in the physical realm, but he doesn't do that with everybody. That's why he gives us doctors and therapists and hospitals. These are all good things. So he didn't heal me that way. So that's the first thing. The second thing is rehab. Why rehab? The beauty of a 30-day or 90-day rehab is you come off this hamster wheel of your life. You come off the hamster wheel and you get to focus on yourself. This is where you learn who you are. This is where you learn about that kid in 9th grade who isolated himself. This is where you learn about what your fears and thoughts were, of why you're doing drugs. We all know the symptoms. This is where you learn of how your brain got rewired. This is where the knowledge and education and in the individual one-on-one therapy, you learn who you are, what you are, why you are. And I think you'll do as I did. I think you'll turn to that little kid in your life and you'll say, thanks for trying to protect me. You did a great job. I'm not mad at you, little Jack. I love you. You did everything you could to help me, but we don't need to do that anymore. Thanks. We can take off these diapers. We can take off this tricycle. All those things I was so scared of. If I had just gone in the room and turned on the light, oh my gosh, they were little nothings, but my little kid mind had magnified them and they just kept going and going. Yep. My father, this is an amazing story. I was in college. I come home. My dad had a heart attack. He was sick, recovering in bed. And he said to me, Jake, he used to call me Jake because his father was Jacob, even though his name is Jack. He said, Jake, this darn remote control is broken. I said, Dad, when he goes, it doesn't work. The remote. He was very frustrated, very aggravated. I said, Dad, give me the remote. I pointed to TV, clicked it, and the channel changed. And I looked at him and I said, Dad, you have to point it at the TV. And without missing a beat, he looked at me and he said, no one ever told me. And I think that what you and I would just take for granted, well, of course, he's sitting there with the remote. He's not pointing at the TV. And this is back in the 70s,
when the remotes first came out, right?
Yes.
You didn't have to get up and turn those 3 channels anymore.
Right. But no one ever told him. He didn't know. That's what happens in rehab. Somebody tells you. Now you get this knowledge, like I said to the counselor. How could you know these things? Well, they were the same for all addicts. That's how. And now you have this knowledge. And now the question is, what will you do with it? That's your choice. When I tell people who go into rehab, I say, don't make any promises to anybody. Don't say you'll never do drugs again. Just go find out and for yourself. And then I want to talk to parents too, because, we had an issue with our son who's in his 30s now, who struggled with drug addiction himself. So not only was I an addict myself and got through it, but I went through it as a parent. And it's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking. I mean, our kid was a kid. He was a bodybuilder at 16, swore he'd never do drugs. And then he went off and started doing them, and he became a raging alcoholic and drug addict. We had 2 younger kids. We had to put him out of the house. he was hanging around unsurly characters. We were concerned. And I'll never forget, I picked him up one time, and he was gotten to jail a couple of times and police a couple of times and blackouts. And I'd pick him up. I'd always pick him up. But eventually we had to put him out of the house, but I'd still pick him up and then bring him out. But at one point, he looked at me in the eye after one time, and he said to me, I'm choosing to live this life. And I want to tell you, Miss Liz, those were the most horrifying words I've ever heard in my life as a parent. He just, and you know what? I get it. I never said it as violently or viciously as he did, but I get it. I was choosing to live my life, and he was making his choices. Well, eventually that changed. He flipped his car over on I-95 one night, and I got a call from the hospital. It was not unusual for us to get calls in the middle of the night, so I pick him up, and I pick up the call. I go to the hospital. I pick him up, and he's all bruised and battered. I bring him home, and I let him sleep it off. It's about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, and I say, buddy, I'm not mad at you. We are so far beyond mad. Mad was so many years ago, and every parent will understand this. I'm not mad at you. I said, I just have one question for you. Do you want help? He says, can I think about it? I said, you have an hour. He comes back down, and he says, yeah, I want help. And I look him dead in the eye, and I say, listen, let's just be clear on one thing. Don't do me any favors. And don't do your mother any favors. This is not about my life or your mother's life or your brother and sister's life. This is about your life. If you want help for you, if you want to find out the truth, then there's help available. There's always help available. Well, great news. He did go in. He got the help he needed. He's been clean and sober. He's married. He has a child. He's 7 years sober. It's wonderful. But I want to share, Miss Liz, that not every parent has that outcome. So it doesn't always work out that way. We got lucky. It wasn't about, we just got lucky, and thankfully God was with us. But there's a lot of godly people whose kids die. So that child, that person has to make the choice for themselves. So great for us that our oldest son made the right choice. But I tell parents this, I say, listen, the textbook says you can't enable them. You cannot house them. You cannot give them money. You have to cut them off. Now, we did that, and we got very lucky because our son didn't cut us off. We said, hey, son, we love you, but you can't live here when you're going through this. He didn't give us the finger. He didn't say, I can't believe you told me out, then I'm never talking to you again. Some kids do that. And
I've gotten that.
So you understand. Well, I say to the parents this, I say, here's your choice. I say, I believe God's trying to bring the addict to their knees where they're so desperate that they have to get help. And you're stopping them. You're putting this cushion up and stopping them. However, if you can't handle the call from the morgue or the jail, my wife, Beth, and I, we knew our son was a dead man walking. And believe me, we had tried everything for years. I mean, everything. I mean, I knew I was an addict. I was recovering. My wife hadn't had a drink in 40 years. She struggled when she was younger. So we knew nothing worked. We knew he was a dead man walking. So we knew we may get that call from the morgue or call from the jail, but we knew there was no other way. So but I say to parents, listen, if you can't live with that fact, because there are some parents who, this is what they say to me, and spouses too, who have a spouse that's struggling. They'll say, well, I can never be happy until my son or my spouse is sober. And the first thing I say is, okay, so that means that, God is not your source of happiness. Then
right.
your happiness is dependent on another person. That's a whole separate issue, a whole separate conversation, because, God is my source of happiness, peace, and joy. Bad things may happen, good things may happen, but you can't take God from me.
Well, I really want to appreciate you saying that, because it is a spouse that that deals with an addiction in my life, And for the longest time, I was doing the enabling. I was always picking up. I was always cleaning. I was always, okay, it's okay. You're safe. You're safe. Mm. But all I was doing was giving him the okay to do it again, you know? And you need to, at some point, say, you know what? No, you no longer are my happiness. I have my happiness within the Lord. And until you find your happiness, then, we're not going to connect. And Amen. we need to be able to say that and say, you know what, enough is enough. And we have a comment here with saying, when you enforce rehab for others and they're not ready, that's more destructive than any help out there.
Say again? What was
the comment is, when you force someone into rehab and they're not ready, you're doing more destructive work than anything.
It's interesting, and let's talk about that. And thank you, Ms. Liz, for sharing, your personal side of this. So I've seen a lot of people go into rehab forced in. Some are court ordered,
Yep.
some because they're going to lose their job or their family. The spouse and family says you got to go. So they weren't ready. They didn't want to go.
Yep.
They went, and now it still works sometimes, because sometimes in rehab the light goes off and they see the light. A lot of times it does not, and a lot of times rehabs fail for two reasons. One, they don't give people individual therapy enough. People, I believe that if somebody is willing to get to the core of their issues, that means I want to find out. Open me up, and I say that people struggling from going to rehab, listen, these are strangers. You never have to see them again the rest of your life if you don't want to. So don't go in there and try to be cool and put in the airs and have them think this or that like you do all your life. Open yourself up so you can see, like I said to my son, for you, so you'll know the truth about yourself and you'll get to decide, not for me or your mother. So
well, that's it, right? It's not a favor because you've already broken our trust. You've already betrayed us, So we're telling us, yeah, I'm going to go for rehab. And you say, well, I'm going to do it for you guys. And we're like, no, we don't want you to do it for us. We want you to do it for yourself. Save yourself first, and then we can save the rest of the family.
Yes. But if they're not ready, and I can attribute this to my own life, until I was ready. And I often make this same analogy to the gospel of Jesus, so I want to share the gospel with people, but I know that's great. Until they're ready, until it's their time, it doesn't matter how many times I could talk myself blue. It's not happening. And you could have talked me blue for 33 years. If you came up to me and said, let's talk about Jesus, I would have said, we're not having this conversation.
Yeah.
Get away from me. I don't care what you think. First of all, I'll think what I think. Leave me alone. And if you did it more than once, I wouldn't talk to you again. So, I respect that. I hope that in my life and in other lives that we promote through attraction, that people see that we have something they want. What is that? Peace and joy. Peace and joy. I'm not saying I never have a bad day, but I'm saying I have the joy of the Lord, the peace of the Lord. I believe when I die, I'm going to heaven for all eternity. I'm passing through here. This life is a gift. I say you can look at life two ways. I say I bring you to Disney, the greatest place on earth, or a Springsteen concert if you're a Springsteen fan. And I bring you to Disney and you're happy and I get on and I say to you, the park closes in an hour. Well, you have two choices. You can start kicking stuff and throwing stuff and saying, I can't believe you brought me to this place and I only have an hour. This sucks. You're terrible. Or you could go out and go, let me run to the rides and ride as many as possible in the hour that I have. This is life. And it's all perspective. It's all perspective. It's all how you're going to look at it, how you're going to appreciate it. So when God came into my life after 33 years, thankfully, I have a new perspective. I have the joy and peace I never had. And Miss Liz, I had everything by the world standards. I had money, job, success, fast track, girlfriend, drugs. I had it all. And I was empty. My head would hit the pillow at night. And I would say, my life stinks. I can't believe this is all there is. Drugs, gambling, dates, there's got to be more. And there was and there is. So I want to encourage, people to do that. So back to the parents for a minute and forcing the people into rehab. So a parent, what are they going to do? Anything they can. They see their kid's life or spouse's life slipping away. So they love them. They're concerned if they don't protect them, that they're going to die out there in the street anyway. So the decision I tell parents to make is this, or spouses. I say, look, either don't enable them anymore. And in a spouse case, sometimes that means leaving, separating or divorcing. Or if you can't live with the fact that you're going to get the call from the jail or the morgue and you're going to be guilty that it was your fault. Well, I should have protected them and I should have done this. And now Satan not only took down the guy or girl doing the drugs, he took down the whole family. How absurd is that? But I say to them, if you can't live with that, then you know what? Accept the fact that you have a drug addicted spouse or child and then live with it. Stop making yourself miserable.
Exactly.
The textbook is I would tell you, don't enable them. You got to cut them off. Let them hit bottom. But they could die or go to jail. There's no guarantee. But this is the only shot. But if you can't live with that, if God is not your source of joy, if your happiness is dependent upon someone else's, then why are you making yourself crazy? Then just say, you know what? I'm going to accept this. Not every drug addict dies. Some live, and not every alcoholic dies. They eventually die, but some live to 60, 70, 80. Yeah, they lost out on a lot of things in life and caused a lot of pain and grief for themselves and everyone else. Yeah. But, stop making yourself, just accept it. Stop telling him he's got to go to meetings and do this and clean up his act and this and that. He's not listening to you anyway.
They're going to do what they want to do, right?
they've tuned out.
him or her.
Well,
We're you know, it's there are women that have addictions too. You know, it's not just males. So for
definitely.
anyone out there who is suffering with an addiction, you know, reach out to your services when you're ready. I really want to put that out there because I know from living from it. And Jack, I want to say, you know, you don't want to get that phone call. You don't want to get that, you know, they're gonna die. You got to go to the hospital or what, but they're already dying inside. They're already gone. They're already not there, you know. And until they find help and research and do that therapy themselves for themselves, not for us, but
Yes.
for themselves, that's the only way we're gonna get them back to the person that we really fell in love with, and the child or the spouse, you know, because they're already gone. They're not there. You know, the addiction has taken them from us. And the longer we enable them, the longer we hurt ourselves in the end, you know. And telling somebody to keep going for help and doing the right thing, and that all it does is just frustrate them, because then they're going to do it. Well, I'm doing it for you, I'm doing it for the marriage, I'm doing it for mom, I'm doing it for dad, you know. And then they get to the point where they're just like, but I'm not doing it for myself, so why am I doing it? And then
Mm,
they just get more frustrated with the people that they love. And then it's just like, okay, you know what, until they're ready to do it on their own, they have to figure this out. But at that point, we just have to stop enabling, you know. Like I said earlier, Jack, I was the enabler. I was like, no, it's okay, I understand, you fell, let me pick you up, you know, let me carry you again. But I can't carry anybody, I can't save anybody. Like we said before the show even started, we can only give the tools and the tips. It's up to everyone else to take them, you know. We can't say I'm saving you, you know, because we're not saving anybody. The only person we can save is ourselves. uh you know. And Jack, that's what you did, is you saved yourself. You know, you woke up one day and you said, you know what, I'm not doing this anymore. You know, Satan doesn't have a vote anymore, and I'm moving on.
that's
And
it.
I want to, and you know, and I want to thank you for that, and thank you for all the services that you've done and provided for other people out there. And you
Well,
know, like you said, like the one question you ask is, do you want help?
that's right.
It's that simple. Do you want it or not? And then if you're saying, well, no, I'm not doing that, I'm not doing that, then you don't want help. You
That's right.
know, you're telling us that you don't want help, because if we're giving you all these different options and tools and you're saying, no, I'm not going to do that. No, then you're not ready. You know, let's just be brutally honest and tell, you know, and let people know that by being honest, we respect you more. And it might help with the betrayal, it might hurt, it might help with the hurt and the pain inside. um if I get a little emotional, it's because I live it, I understand
Mm,
it, Jack.
mm,
You know, and I really want everyone to understand that the longer we enable, the longer we keep that person in that darkness, you know.
that's right. Miss Wiz, thank you for that. And listen, we can just share to them, the ways out, like we talked about. There's, prayer and spiritual deliverance. There's rehab, 30-day. There's 90-day rehab. There's long-term programs like Teen Challenge and Faith Farm that are year-long programs. There's Celebrate Recovery. There's AA and NA, which are wonderful programs. The only problem that you could have in AA or NA is that you could go to the meetings, you could follow the program's formula, you could stop using drugs and alcohol, but you could be more miserable than when you used. We call those people dry drunks, and it doesn't happen to all. I support AA and NA. They are wonderful programs and have saved millions of lives. But there are people who go, stop using. Okay, I'm stopping using, but they never got to the core of their issues, so they never understood why, and they're more miserable now because they don't have the drugs and alcohol to medicate their pain anymore. So you've got to get to the core issue. You've got to understand who you are. You can try outpatient therapy. The reason I like that the least, we talked about, prayer, spiritual deliverance, rehab, 90-day, 30-day. We talked about Faith Farm, Teen Challenge, Celebrate Recovery, NAAA. But the last one is outpatient therapy. The problem with that is it's a 50-minute hour in therapy. You go once a week. So now I'm going to the therapist. I'm trying to get to the core of my issues. And I'm just getting a little background, getting a little history. How are you this week? Oh, my boss pissed me off. My wife pissed me off. When are we ever getting to the core?
Right.
That's the beauty of the 30 days. You come off the hamster wheel, you come off your life. And I love when addicts tell me, and they go, I can't go into rehab. And I go, why? I'll lose my job. The job you're going to get fired from in a month?
Right? You're going to eventually lose that job because you're eventually going to,
You
the
know,
addiction is going to take you from
for
it.
my family, I can't leave my wife and kids. I said, your wife and kids. I said, they're on their knees praying every freaking night that you would go get the help you need so you could be the person that God intended you to be. They are suffering and miserable, and they would do anything. Everybody will take care of everything, friends, family included, for you to go away and get the help you need. It's just a load of crap. It's just another excuse. So the only question again comes down to, do you want help? There is a way out for anybody that wants one. There is a way out, and that's where it comes back to hope and to inspiration and transformation. The question is, how much pain do you need to feel? How much pain do you need to feel? I mean, I'm telling you, I'm not the only one. There's no way out of this road. I mean, some a little longer than others. The meth and the fentanyl now you're just going to die quick on fentanyl. Oh, that's great. They didn't plan on that. That's right. I mean, some drugs will take longer to destroy you, but they all take you to the same place. I just share this with you quickly. I know time is moving. In the height of my gambling addiction, I was in my 20s, and early 20s. I called my brother up. I said, boy, that's an affectionate nickname we have for each other. I'm the young kid. Boy, I have a gambling problem. He says, no, you don't. I said, no, I do. He said, no, you're crazy, Jake. You don't have a gambling problem. I said, no, I do. And I said, this is the only call I'm making. And if you don't help me, I'm never reaching out again. And he said, okay, I understand. And he took me to a Gamblers Anonymous meeting in New York, and he walked me to the door up to the library, and he said, do you want me to come in? I said, no, this is all I need. I went to Gamblers Anonymous for a year. I sat around the table. I saw old guys, young guys, men, women. Here was the amazing part. We all had different issues. One guy's betting on sports, another guy horses, another guy poker, another guy blackjack. There was one guy, I'll never forget it. He would go into the bars and play these pinball machines that you win tickets on. And I'm sitting there thinking, this guy's got to be the biggest idiot in the world. I can't believe this. I'm betting on Michael Jordan, the best basketball player of all time. So when I make a bet on Michael Jordan, I own Michael Jordan. He costs $20 million a year. I own him for that night. But what I realized, Miss Liz, is that every single one of us at the table, and this is true for any kind of addiction, every kind of addiction, we were all in the same place. It didn't matter how much we used, what we did, what the vehicle was. It doesn't matter how much drug you do. It doesn't matter if you're a binge drinker, if you do it every night at work, if you have a glass of wine at dinner. It doesn't matter. If you tell me that you're not addicted, I'll just say to you, stop. I'll believe you're not addicted. Stop for 60 days. Well, you can't. Right. You can't stop for 30 days. As a matter of fact, you can't stop for 2 weeks. You probably can't even stop for 2 days. So call it what you will. You're addicted. And that's the bottom line. But we were all in the same place spiritually. It didn't matter. We were all bankrupt. We were all broken and ruined. It didn't matter. That guy with the tickets in the bar or me or anybody, it didn't matter. It doesn't matter what drug. It doesn't matter how much. It matters what it does to you, how it ruins and destroys your life. 1 out of every 8 people is addicted. It cuts across every demographic, geographic, psychographic profile. It's everybody and everyone, and it's tragic. But the great news is there is a way out. You just have to choose to take it. There is a way out. But that was an eye-opening experience for me. When I went to NA and I met this guy, my first NA meeting, big motorcycle guy, big guy, patches and everything. He goes, oh, so what was your drug of choice? And I said, Percocet and cocaine. I said, Percocet. Yeah, I should do 5 Percocets a day, 2 every hour. And he looked at me and he laughed hysterically. He said, 5 a day? He said, I do 40 a day. He said, I got so messed up, I cut my thumb off. And he showed me. You know what? It didn't matter. He and I are in the same place. It didn't matter. And you build up tolerance. Why can a guy drink a case of beer? Or, none of it matters. People think, oh, I only drink on the weekends. I only wine. I only this. You're just lying to yourself. And the last thing I want to share with your audience and us is the person who is struggling with addiction knows it. You know it. You know you're over the line. I always thought I could invite Satan in, play with him, and tell him when it was time to leave. And one day I realized I was over the line and I couldn't get back. Like a man drowning out in the sea in the undercurrent. There was just a moment when I said, oh crap, I'm over the line. I felt like an animal in a trap. I said, this is what it must feel like when they got your leg and you can't move. And I felt Satan pulling me into the pit, wanting to pull me down. Fortunately, I got the help I needed. And again, there's help and a way out for anybody who wants it. There's hope, there's inspiration, there's encouragement. My life has been so much better. I've had the most 30 wonderful years, and it gets better and better. And I just want to encourage everybody, see for yourself. See for yourself, learn why you do drugs, get to the core of the issues, come back and tell me, oh no, I don't like this. I'm going to choose to do drugs. Oh, okay. At least you'll have had all the information and truth. What are your thoughts, Miss Liz? Any other quick questions? I know.
Yeah, I know the hour is just flying by, and that's what I told you when we were in the backstage, because I asked all my guests to come in early, and we were just yakking and yakking, and I was like, "Oh no, it's live! It's still time." So Jack, and if anybody would like to reach out to you or contact you, how can they reach out to you and
Sure.
get your
My
services?
website is jackallenlevine.com. My email is jack@jackallenlevine.com. But I think the best way I can help you and your viewers is every single one of my books. This is My Addict, Your Addict. Great book for people with addiction and their families. And this is Addiction and Recovery Handbook. I had 17 authors, psychiatrists, sober homeowners, rehab guys, NA, AA, all write chapters, including my own, about recovery, so people would understand it from all perspectives. The books are free. Ebook. I can't afford to print them and mail them and send them to you. They're free at jackallenlevine.com/ebooks. jackallenlevine.com/ebooks. If you go to the book section, they're hardcover, you have to pay for them. If you go to the ebooks, they're all for free. You can download one or all of them. Addiction books, God books, business books, whatever you want. And I hope and pray that you would, read them and use them. If you're somebody struggling with addiction, My Addict, Your Addict is a great book. It's a very fast read. It tells you my story, my son's story, the way out. This Addiction Recovery Handbook is amazing. If you're a family member, has somebody struggling, you'll understand. I mean, it's critical that family members understand what addiction is and why they should create boundaries and how they should protect their own lives. And at least they'll understand what's happening to their kid and why. And as you said, Miss Liz, when it happens, like when somebody gets flu symptoms, that sweet child or sweet spouse is still in there, but they are definitely overtaken by the flu and the addiction. It just change them and rewire them. And that is how they're functioning until it changes. So thank you so much for giving me the opportunity today.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. And I really appreciate that. Living it, I do understand it, and the enabling needs to stop. If you want to really save your loved ones, just stop enabling. Yes, they're going to get mad at you. Yes, they're going to get frustrated with you. But you know what? At the end of the day, they're going to have that time to say, you know what, it's me or the family, and I really want to thank you, Jack, for saying that. Like, I'm going to lose my job. I'm going to lose my family. You already lost them with this addiction. So please, stop with the excuses. Just go and do it for yourself. And we're going to love you, whether we're together or we're not together. We're going to respect you more by you getting help for you. Don't do it for us. Do it for you. Save you. I really want to thank you, Jack, today. And I want to thank my audience for tuning in. And if anyone has been triggered, I do apologize. Some of these topics that we bring to the table are a little heavy, and sometimes they do trigger the heart, and they do trigger Miss Liz sometimes as well. So, Jack, I want to really thank you for today and sharing your story and bringing the awareness, and for all of your service that you've done over the last 20 years, and I'm so happy that you got help and you got saved, stay on the path. And I'm only a cup of tea away, and if anybody really is struggling with addictions and needs help, look at your community services. And some services may work for you, some services may not. Let's put that out there, that AA and NA, we're not knocking them down, but sometimes it doesn't work for some of the addicts. There are other services out there. Check your local yellow pages, check online, Google searches. Even if you have to move to save yourself, do what you have to do to save yourself. Your family and your loved ones will respect you for what you do to save you. At the end of the day, that's what they want. They want you to save yourself. So again, I want to thank you, Jack. I want to thank the audience. And we will be joining Ayana Davis. She's coming back and she'll be talking about autism and autistic. And she is just a spunk. And she's going to be sharing updates because she was on season 3. So she'll be back on season 4. And then we finish up with kickboxing and mental health tonight at 7 p.m. So we are doing 3 strong shows today. So if your heart is a little sensitive today, I won't be offended if you don't tune in. But you can always watch these tea times at your own pace and at your own time. They are on Miss Liz's YouTube channel. Give it a quick subscribe, ring that bell, and you can watch these at any time, and you'll be notified when I'm live with a Tea Time. So again, Jack, I want to thank you for coming on Tea Time, sharing your story. The hour has just flown right by. We will be back at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and then 7 p.m. That's how Miss Liz rolls. We do 3 shows on Thursday. And sometimes they're a little hard and sometimes they're a little soft, but you just never know what comes to Tea Time with Miss Liz. And if you'd like to subscribe to Miss Liz's website, you can do that as well and get on the email list, and you can see all of the incredible guests. They are released on the 23rd of every month. So all of May's guests are there. You can RSVP and tune in to each of those Tea Times. So Jack, before we wrap up, I know we have like maybe 5 seconds.
Great.
I just want to give you a quick couple seconds to say thank you and all of that.
I want to pray for you. Dear Lord, please just bless the brothers and sisters watching out there. Give them hope and encouragement, Lord. Let them take the right step to recovery, to life that you intended for them, Lord. Remind them that there's hope. You created them for a purpose. You love them. You'll never leave them and forsake them. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you, Ms. Liz, for a great day.
Thank you so much. And don't leave. I'm just going to close this up.
Great.